Join us for summer biz camp.
Oh wow, I wasn't expecting that.
Hey,
Okay, so on June 26th, which is like next week, probably at the time this comes out, we're kicking off summer biz camp, which means that like if you've been listening to us, you're like, oh my gosh, you really want to learn from Tristan and Brooke. This is like the only thing that we have on the books
I
for
mean
teaching
more
together.
more to come, but for now this is it. And if you're feeling like things are slow and perhaps it's time to re-strategize, reevaluate, if you're feeling like perhaps something you never did was like, I don't know, create a business model, evaluate how your pricing fits in your business model, how your offers fit in your business model, maybe it's time to join us to do that fun stuff together.
Yeah, here's a question. Uh, Ever thought about your business model?
Me? No,
If the answer is no, then you should be in summer biz camp.
I'm raising
We're
my
going to
hand.
be doing 8 weeks of 2 hour sessions together every Wednesday from June 26th to August 14th. We're talking about positioning and positionality, business models and pricing, offers development and messaging, marketing, content strategy. And we have 4 sessions for spot coaching and co-working with us, which means that you can ask us whatever you want and get coaching along the way. We have 3 tiers ranging from 650 to 1850, depending on what you are able to do. And yeah, we want to see you there.
Let us know if you have any questions.
Let us know. Oh, we're recording in person. We've never recorded in person before.
We've never recorded in person.
We're on Tristan's couch.
We're sitting on my couch.
I'm talking to you, not the listeners.
We're sitting on my couch.
Listeners, you're just listening in. This is the only time I will break the fourth wall. This episode.
The fact that we're recording in person, you think this should somehow be our opening?
Yeah, I don't know. Normally we do this long
on a
distance
computer. Mm-hmm.
on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we're on a couch,
We sure are.
face to face. We've
Should
been
we do
watching.
should we do like an update on how we soothe ourselves in our spare time?
Yeah. Also, like maybe an update on our like we were talking about how different our taste in TV is, but we have found some overlap on this visit.
Great.
I showed you Love on the Spectrum because you don't watch reality TV and you definitely don't watch reality dating shows.
I do not.
And I think that Love on the Spectrum is a very unique dating show, which was a great segue for you or introduction for you. I also think that it is so interesting that you don't like dating shows, considering that you like
Heteronormative.
heteronormative romance.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it.
And then what happened, Tristan, when we started Love on the Spectrum?
I didn't want to stop watching it. And we watched the whole first season in one night.
Yeah. And then we watched the whole second season
in one night.
the next night. Specifically the Australia version. We haven't gotten into the US
Yes,
one
to
yet.
be very clear. But I also just find that, I mean, there's probably something really soothing to me about watching neurodivergent folks
Yes.
date, whereas, even if they're super heteronormative, whereas watching more, I'll just say neurotypical folks date in their heteronormativity. I don't know why. There's something different from a dance movie or like a coming of age heteronormative story versus it's the reality show. It's like maybe it's the production quality. I hate the like manipulation of it all. Like unless it's like, RuPaul's Drag Race, which is like
Well.
queer and over the top.
This is the other thing. Then you introduced me to RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yeah.
But I do want to go back to why I think Love on the Spectrum is so soothing.
Okay.
For
you.
me.
Okay.
And I think for a lot of people that I've talked to who love this show, and I'm curious to know what you think. Love on the Spectrum, it's a show people who are on the spectrum for dating. And what I find so beautiful about the show is the level of communication that is how intentional the communication is every step of the way. Because it's like for neurotypical, quote,
Quote, unquote,
neurotypical
yeah.
people, there's like so much that we're used to doing where we're not saying what we actually mean. We're not saying what we actually think.
Yes.
It's like the other person's supposed to pick up
Yes.
on certain cues.
Yes.
And it's like,
those same cues aren't available when we're talking with autism. When we're talking about our
and
autism.
we have so much work to do as neurotypical people, like
Quote unquote.
quote unquote. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself
Yeah, you're not
neurotypical.
neurotypical,
I'm
and
not.
neither am I.
But as somebody who's not on the autism spectrum,
we're not on the spectrum.
and
that we
somebody
know of.
who does a lot of probably not saying what I mean in many instances, I think that one of the things that I have found so fruitful in my friendships and relationships as an adult is learning how to communicate more clearly about what I actually mean and like say things that otherwise I wouldn't say.
Yes.
And so when I watch Love on the Spectrum and I watch how clear the communication is, and I don't know, there's just something about it where I feel like there's something that we as people who are not on the spectrum are missing.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
RuPaul's Drag Race, on the other hand, soothing for a different reason.
Absolutely. And that's the kind of like overly produced reality show that I can get down with. But in general, dating shows, to my knowledge, heteronormative dating shows are not only heteronormative, they're overly produced to the point of manipulative and like reinforcing what feels to me like extra toxic dynamics. I could be wrong. Whereas like on the Love on the Spectrum show, I don't feel like they're reinforcing super toxic. I mean, yes, of course, we're like, you know, like this one character who feels like he's never gonna be whole if he doesn't get married. Like, I get it, but we're also like, this is a result of culture,
Right.
and I want this individual to be happy and loved, you know? But I feel like RuPaul, on the other hand, in the production of it and the potential manipulation of the dynamics of the show, sure, it's toxic, but it's toxic in a queer way.
Okay. I think that part of what is going on when you watch RuPaul's Drag Race is you're aware of the fact that it's being this. Of course, of course, every reality show.
Yes.
For the most part, I think Love on the Spectrum is different. But I think that the vast majority of reality shows, the producers have a narrative that they've decided they want to show because they want to show some sort of arc to keep people interested.
Yes.
And then they manipulate.
They facilitate that narrative.
it. They script certain things.
Yes.
And then they edit to make it tell that story.
Yes.
That is absolutely happening on RuPaul's Drag Race as well. But part of it is like, you know that it's happening and you just accept that it's happening.
Yes.
And then you kind of set it aside so that you can enjoy the show.
Yes. Also, catty queens are entertaining.
Yes. Now, I would say that perhaps my other favorite reality dating show, which has none of the merits of Love on the Spectrum, it's just absolute trash, is Love Island, which I've not shown you yet.
For good reason.
But, no, we're getting there. Don't worry. I'm putting the breadcrumbs in place.
You're gently leading me into the depths of the water.
Yes,
I feel it. My toes are wet, and I'm still okay. I'm here. I'm standing in the water. I'll walk a little bit further into it with you.
Yeah. Well, you won't really know what's happening until you're there. That's what happens with Love Island. You watch a couple episodes of it, and the next thing you know, your life has just passed by for days, and you don't even know what's happened outside of your house because you just had to keep watching.
See, that doesn't sound good to me.
Yeah, it doesn't sound good. Drugs don't really look like that appealing unless you're on them. And this is kind of an example.
Wow, are you my dealer?
Yeah, a little bit.
Cool.
So anyways, what I love about Love Island is that there's a voice over happening that's narrating, because Love Island is all of these people live in a villa together and there's just cameras all around. But then there's a narrator over it who's kind of like helping things along and like transitioning into whatever, and is just full on making fun of them. And it makes it so that you can be like, oh, okay, the production of Love Island, like, they are even aware of how ridiculous this is. And that allows me to set aside some of what's going on here and just appreciate this for what it is, which is you set up a really bougie terrarium, like a tank, right?
Yes.
And you find a bunch of test subjects, and your test subjects are, who are the most self-absorbed, vain people in the UK? Let's just
Put 'em in the
handpick
tank. Yeah.
those people,
Uh-huh.
put them in swimsuits and high heels, and throw them in the tank. And then let's set up cameras, watch what they do, and make fun of them.
This is why I think I'm going to say I'm not going to get into it.
Yep.
Look, love on
Famous
the look,
last
love on the
words.
spectrum. These people are, you're rooting for them. Love on the spectrum.
You end
like
up rooting
you
for
end up
people.
rooting for these characters. I'm not saying I don't believe I would root for characters on Love Island. Characters, people.
Yeah.
But I don't generally like shows or characters or stories that are basically revolving around people who are the way you're describing these individuals.
You don't. What's some of your favorite movies?
Some of my favorite movies, like Step Up, you mean? I don't get it. What are you saying?
I mean,
Communicate clearly. You were just talking about the importance of learning to communicate clearly. Tell me what it is. What exactly are you saying?
it seems like you enjoy movies that revolve around heteronormative, conventionally attractive
Nice people.
dynamics where people are
Caring about one another.
Is that what's happening in those movies?
Well,
Yeah.
sometimes
Right.
it's happening underneath the misogyny,
Sometimes.
sexism, and patriarchy.
This is what I'm saying. At least on Love Island, they're mocking it. Love
I don't
Island
want to
is
be
like-
taken out of it. I don't want to stand outside of it and mock it from afar. I want to be immersed in
Yeah.
cis heteronormative sexism, patriarchy, misogyny. I want to feel like it's all around me, masked as love.
Okay, so we're talking about pricing and money today.
Pricing and money.
And specifically, what I think is so interesting is that when I first started my business, there was a lot of conversation happening around sales and like how to do sales calls the right way and like how to basically how to get people to pay you
Yes.
on a call.
Yes.
And I think that what we're seeing is
By the way, I never did that. Never felt good about it.
Me neither.
Never did it.
I've never done it once. But I think that what we're seeing is like so many people I think tried that
Yep.
and really fucking hated it and realized that they're actually unwilling to do it and are now I think collectively, I think there's been a shift. Maybe it's just the people that I choose to follow or surround myself with, but I see very little of that now, and I see many more people instead thinking about how do I set my business up to attract the right people so that I'm not having to
Constantly
use
be
these-
selling.
Right. I think I told you this, but I went to Arlen Hamilton's event in LA, Your First Million Live. And of course, the one speaker who I did not give a shit about seeing was Gary Vee. And of course, he went on right as I got there. One thing that Gary Vee did say, though, you will not hear me quote Gary Vee very often, but I laughed out loud when he said this, which was, everyone who's out there bragging about how good they are at sales, do you know what it means when you're good at sales? It means you're bad at branding. And that was exactly what Arlen Hamilton said.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. And I was like, huh,
I completely believe that.
I do too. He was like, because when you're good at branding, people come and find you.
Exactly.
When you're not good at branding and you don't have a brand working for you, and
You have to
don't have
go-
a sustainable marketing strategy working for you, you are always going to be chasing the next sale and hustling to try to get people to give you their money.
Yes. And as we've been talking about over the last few episodes, I believe that the moment we're in, we are not going to be effective actually anymore.
I agree.
At just trying to sell and hustle to get people's money.
I agree.
Not that that's something any of us necessarily even feel good about doing, nor is what we want to be doing. I don't even think it's a sustainable or strategic strategy. We know, this is what we've been saying, we know now when people are trying to sell us shit. And I also feel like the hustling and the trying to sell is you trying to manipulate or convince someone in the value of what you're doing rather than just trusting that they believe in the value of what they're doing and they know that you're there doing it, and then they'll come into a relationship with you when they're ready to, if they feel called to.
Yeah. If you have a great, if you know what you're doing and you have a great service to provide and you know that you're good at it and you know that the person is right for it, then telling the truth about it ends up being the best way to sell it, which we're going to talk more about in the next episode when we talk about offers.
Yes.
Right. But like, recently, this was so funny. This was a person who I met at Your First Million Live. I actually didn't meet her. I saw her posting. She posted something in her stories that she was going there, and then it got like reshared in somebody else's stories, and then I ended up realizing that this was a coach who lived right in the same area that I lived in. We talked about potentially meeting up and going together and whatever. We didn't end up meeting up. I followed her on Instagram when I found her. And then the week after the event, because I had been DMing with her, I started getting sales DMs about a program that she had coming up. From her, which I'm putting in quotes because I
It was in your DMs with
it was not her. It was somebody somebody else
in
on her
account.
team talking to me about this program. And listen, I worked retail. I know. You get when I know that you train people to push past 3 objections. Right? You never take the first or second no for an answer. You need 3 no's before you stop. This is exactly what this person did in the DMs.
Okay, first of all, that is exactly what has happened to me recently with the I'm like, what word do I use? I'm just going to go for it. The fuckers who came to my door trying to sell me stuff, right?
Yeah.
I had to say 3 times. And then on the 3rd time, I said, I've said this 3 times, no. And he left. The thing that I feel in my body when I hear about this is, this is not the kind of culture I want to be a part of.
No, and I immediately was like, wow, you're not who I thought that you were. I can tell this isn't actually you. This is gross. Not only am I unfollowing you, but I am now using you as an example
of what not to do.
Of what not to do. Ew. And there's no way. When I see people doing stuff like that, I'm like, wow, you are so behind the curve. You are about to fall the fuck behind because you are not keeping up with what's happening right now. That shit might have worked before. It's not it.
No, it's so disrespectful to not hear somebody's no. I'm also just thinking of the ACLU kid who got me when I was walking into the pet store. And I was walking into the pet store, and the ACLU kid is standing outside the pet store. And the ACLU kid says, hey, you got a moment for trans rights or something like that? And so, of course, I fucking turn around, because of course I do. I'm a trans person, for goodness sakes. And so I'm listening to this kid. I tell the kid, I've probably got enough money to give you a one-time donation, but I can't do like a monthly thing. And the kid says, well, I would argue that if you could do it once, you could do it every month. Or like if you've got this money to spare, whatever it was. And I'm just like, that was my no, first of all. Honor it. First of all, also, I'm part of the community. You're literally saying, like, the layers of it is just so wrong. And I just feel like, and that's the ACLU.
I know.
That makes me so sad. Now I don't even want to give them any money ever again because I literally felt harmed by this kid. I mean, the interaction went on. I ended up giving the kid my credit card number, whatever. The kid manipulated me is what it felt like, and it didn't feel good, and it didn't feel like the kind of human rights advocacy dynamic that I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
And if we're talking about that when it comes to human rights and social rights and blah 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 blah, the same should be said for our businesses.
Totally. And I would say that almost definitely, I'm going to go ahead and say definitely, the reason that kid did that is because they were explicitly trained to do so.
This is what I'm saying.
And think that they're doing a great job.
This is what I'm saying.
Now, I think that many of us as business owners feel like when we don't push hard enough in a sales conversation, we're doing something wrong. Like, one of the skills that we should have is to not just like let these potential leads pass by, that we should be better at
knowing our value and being able to stand firm and communicate it. Blah blah blah.
And by the way, one of the things that so the program that I was being sold on by a person who was not the person that they claimed to be was
Tell me, was it an ethical marketing program?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
It was an ethical marketing program.
I was making a joke.
I know you were. I wrote a newsletter about it called that. This was what kicked off the whole just because you say that you're.
Oh, I thought you were talking about somebody else.
Somebody else. I kind of was, but this happened at the same time. There's another person.
An abundance of examples of.
But this is the hilarious thing. It's not hilarious. It's actually really awful. This woman was using the language of, you want to market ethically, you really care about people, you want to do this in a way that is aligned with your values. But I care so much about you, ethical people who care about these values, and I don't want to see you losing the sale. You need to stop equating ethics with just letting these sales pass you by.
Oh my God.
And you need to learn how, and pushing past objections is not unethical. This was some of the main marketing. So when I see this as somebody who studies what people are doing all the time, what I see is you are trying to convince the people who are questioning themselves about these unethical practices. You're trying to convince them that they can be ethical and also keep doing the shit that they in their gut already feel is wrong.
Yeah, it feels a little gaslighty.
Yeah.
And a little Darvo reverse offender, manipulative, deny, attack, reverse offender.
Yeah. So then...
Fun. Sounds like abuse, actually.
Yeah, it's gross. So then what I think about on the reverse side of this is the times that I thought, well, this person wants to give me money, so I should take it.
Yes.
I should say yes to work. If someone wants to work with me, I should say yes to it. It's not wise not to. It's not a good business decision not to. And the times that I've gotten myself into a situation where I've started working with somebody that I'm like, wow, I hate this. I do not want to be working with you.
Yep. So what you're saying is it's not all about the sale or getting people's money. Because sometimes it's not going to feel good to take somebody's money if you really don't want to be supporting them in their work.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a kind of mean way to put it, but that's really what it comes down to.
It's not, though, when we think about...
It's about who we're actually meant to be serving or who we're actually aligned to be working with.
Right.
And we're not, we say this all the time, we're not going to be for everybody, but I feel like we say that a lot, or maybe I shouldn't I say all the time, we're not going to be for everybody, and that's totally fine. That's not an excuse to not be accountable to your values. where am I going with this? I think I'm trying to get at the fact that
I think that
Yeah.
maybe what you're getting at is we hear the phrase, you're not going to be for everybody, as a way to make ourselves feel good for the people who don't want to work with us.
yes, that's what
Or
I'm getting
feel
at.
okay with that, but we're not. But then we need to also think about, what about the people who do want to work with us? And we're like, you're not the person though.
Thank you. Yes. I often think I'm not for everybody, and it's okay when people unsubscribe or unfollow or come into a program and then leave and I never see them again, or whatever it is. Or I piss someone off because I say something that they don't want to hear, whatever it is. I'm not for everybody. But you're right. This other part that I think I want to remember is that I'm not for everybody, and not everybody is for me.
Right.
And I have had the experience where I commit to some sort of working container with somebody who comes in saying one thing, like, these are my values and this is the kind of business I want to run, and I think given what I know about you, you can help me do it. And then very quickly I find out that it's not actually true, or a version of it is true, but it's not the complete picture. And when I start to push or invite or challenge a little bit on going farther, I get pushback or defense, and people leave. Like, I see this all the time. And that's what I mean when I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely not for everybody, and people are definitely not all for me, and I don't want to take money from someone if it's a bad fit for both of us. But the model that you're referring to is one in which it is taught that you just take somebody's money regardless of whether or not it's a good fit.
Right.
Because
at the end of the day, it's
capitalism.
about making the money.
Capitalism.
Yeah. And I've had to learn, there are certain things that now when I get on calls with people, I'm asking questions. The questions that I'm asking, right? So maybe this is like a helpful conversation to have in this, right? Like, how should we be having quote unquote sales calls, right? And to me, all that a sales call is me asking enough questions to understand
Yep.
if I can actually see a way for me to support that person and for them to get the desired outcomes that they're looking for.
Exactly, and what the
am
best
I
way
the person-
is to do that.
I mean, yesterday,
Yes.
I was on a call with somebody. Was it yesterday or was it the day
it
before?
was yesterday.
I don't know. I was on a call with somebody, and I absolutely could have said to her at the end of the call, what you should do is we should do this together one-on-one, right?
That's what she came to you for, right? On some level?
Well, she paid me for a one-time like audit call, and then was interested in working with me on an ongoing basis, and was open to what that ongoing basis would be.
Yeah.
I easily could have said,
Yep.
we should do this together one-on-one.
Yep.
My highest priced option, I can get it done in less than a week and make a few $1,000s. And I mean, I guess it's not my highest priced option but anyways,
One of them.
for what it is that she wanted.
Yeah.
And what was very clear to me was that would have been premature for her.
For her.
I have done this enough times, meaning had people come into a space where actually it wasn't the perfect fit for them. I have done that enough times to know that if I had done that, I would have made a few $1,000s, and it would have been a hit to my confidence because I would have been the whole time that I was working with her feeling like it wasn't going super smoothly. And it would have made me feel bad. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So it would have made me feel shitty about my work. She would not have gotten the result that she was actually after, or she would have gotten what looked like the result on paper, but it wouldn't have made the difference for her business. And that would have degraded trust.
Yes.
In
the working
my work.
relationship.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, like, I don't want either of those things.
No.
So instead, I was like, you could do this. I think it's premature. I think that this option is better for you. It's a cheaper option. I don't care because
Right.
that's why I have that other option.
Right, exactly. That's what it's there for.
Right. And then if she goes into that space and it gets the result that I think it could get, then she might be a client later on, or at the very least, at least she got the result that I told her I could help her get. And now we have trust. And I have the confidence and integrity in my work.
This also relates to the other part of the conversation we want to be having, which is when it comes to pricing and money, and actually aligning things both with like our values and the way we want to serve people and the values of the people we want to be in service to, right? And the fact that, especially right now, more than ever before, but also for as long as you and I have been around, people aren't going to have the same financial access. People have different needs, are coming in with different circumstances. I feel like a big part of your work in helping me in my work too has been seeing how to structure my offers in a way to actually reach the people I want to be reaching and find some pathway towards sustaining myself financially.
Yeah. So I think that I see this shift happening where just like before we were only thinking about the sale, there was something that many of us were taught, which was you should have a low ticket, a mid tier, and then a high ticket offer. And this is it's
also like a funnel, right?
Your funnel, your value ladder, your insert whatever, term for it you want. But the point of it, right, was to breadcrumb people, was to trick people into watching Love Island. Right?
Say more.
The point of it was to say, here's my $97 Love on the Spectrum option. Oh, you like that? You like that, do you? Here's my mid-ticket dating around option. Oh, you like that? Ha! Now I've got you watching Love Island for a few $1,000s. Okay, I'm going to say it in words that actually make sense for people.
I think it's so great. But yeah, break it down. I think it's so great.
There was something that we were taught, which was, do you remember tripwires?
I know the term, but I don't know what it really means.
Okay, so what a tripwire is you usually run an ad for something that has this huge promise. It's this incredibly valuable product, but you way, way, way underprice it. So someone sees it and they're like, whoa, this course for this is interesting. And they read the whole thing and they think that it should be like thousands of dollars, but they can get it for $49. And so now they're like, oh yeah, I'll take that. It's less than $50, right? Now they're on your email list. And now you're going to, after that, start inundating them with emails to get them to upsell them to something else, which ultimately the whole point of that next thing that you're upselling them to is to actually set them up for your highest priced offer. It is all a trick, right? I'm not saying that there's necessarily anything wrong with doing things that way. But I think that the sentiment of that is so gross and weird that I don't see any way for those of us who have integrity to use the fundamental strategic elements of that for us, because it's so fucking off. It's just so off from the way that we want to do business. I think that if we think about things instead as maybe you do have a low price, a mid price, and a high priced offer, and maybe the reason that you have those three different offers is because not everyone has the same level of access to pay you $5,000.
Exactly.
For your high priced thing.
Exactly.
How could you offer them something that could help them make progress, but keeps in mind how much they can invest and the amount of time that they have available?
Exactly.
And,
yes.
How can you do that? That leads you, that can take you to the same strategic place in terms of having these different priced offers, but it is to serve a different purpose. And I see that purpose being one that is built on aligning your business model with what your people actually need and with your values, which ultimately creates a sustainable, solid foundation. Whereas building something like that based on the sentiment of trying to trick people, to me, is never going to long-term. You will always be in that hustle for the next sale.
I'm having this moment, and yet again, it's like the moment I had a couple episodes ago where I was like, oh my God, the internet has only existed for this long. But right now, maybe this is a little bit more revelatory, I hope. This is fucking equity in practice. Equity teaches us that we think about what people need, the people who've been most forgotten, right? The people whose needs have been ignored, not met, not considered, not thought about, not talked about, not ever paid attention to. We think about what they need. When we think of and orient and center what people on the margins need, we are going to create more positive impact as far as human rights and well-being for all is concerned, right? Similarly, it's like okay, so capitalism and all of these systems teach us focus on meeting your bottom line, focus on your revenue, make the sale. Don't even take advantage of somebody's freaking financial situation if you have to, right? Lure them in and then freaking just take their money. Who cares? Just take it. Whether you make an impact in their work or not, just get the money, you know? Like, think about how many times we've been fed that narrative in movies and culture, what we're taught and as business owners. And I'm like, no, let's do it another way. Let's think about what people actually need so that we can be of service to them.
Right.
Like, that's the kind of change we're going to make in the work that we do, in the world. Like, this is the way I want to approach marketing, too, is like, what do people actually need to hear? What are people able to hear right now? What do people need to hear right now? How do people need to be met in terms of the work you're doing and how much you're charging? And the thing that you taught me early on, too, when we started having this conversation years ago, was the fact that something like a podcast, for example, is like making your work available for free. And so like there's lots of ways that we reach people without even a quote unquote paywall, right? I mean, granted, the complexities of like who has access to podcasts on what platform, you know, whatever. Anyways, I don't know. I'm just thinking about, to me, this is equitable business. That's what I'm coming back to.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean equitable in terms of like finances. I mean in terms of values and the kind of world we want to create.
Yeah, and I think that like a challenge that I see so many people running into right now, and we think about the people who you and I work with, which are people who give a shit and have some integrity.
Yeah.
Is that the only way that they know how to make their work accessible is to just reduce the price.
Yes.
Or give a scholarship.
Yes.
And that's it. And I think that there is absolutely a place for scholarships.
Yes.
I think that also there's a place to consider, okay, this keeps happening. I keep getting people who can't pay what I am asking for. I, as the business owner, it is on me to do the work of figuring out how to make this make sense for people and also make sense for me, because I can't keep doing this at this rate that I'm now charging because I keep lowering my price and not changing anything else.
Yes.
So you need to then get creative about what is a different delivery method that you could offer, for example, to help people make progress without it having to be such a high price. It should be a change in your price, and it should also be a change in the way that you're delivering the work.
Exactly. Time, labor, etc.
So one of the things that that you can think about is like, this might be the difference in the role of maybe a passive income product, which you can offer for less, but it doesn't require as much labor on your part.
Right.
It might be a place for maybe a group kind of offering where everyone's paying a bit less, but collectively you're being well compensated, but no one's getting the one-on-one support, right? Something like that. Will there be people who are actually, they need the highest priced option and they don't have the resources? Yes. Scholarship those people.
Yes.
But the other 85% of those people are probably a good fit for one of those other options. I think we also need to consider the fact that people do not like sliding into your DMs and asking you to give them something
No.
for less money.
No, I'm actually hearing more and more that when people ask me for, or maybe they don't even say they need a scholarship. A lot of the times lately, I'm hearing from people saying, I'm really interested in coming into this thing, but I don't have the funds right now. And then I say, even though it's written everywhere, let's work something out. And then I hear back, oh, that's so kind of you, or I was ashamed to ask, or it's like, look, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that like, rather than just being like, oh, well, I put on my website that you can tell me what you need, and why aren't these people coming and asking me for it? No, like, it's our work as the business owners to be like, here's the doorway that makes the most sense for you.
I know because I've been working with people like you,
Yes.
and I know your circumstances enough to know that this is what most people in your position need.
Yes. So, for example, I don't know. What's a business that we could use as an example to try to like illustrate?
My business. But also, I just want to say this. I don't think the answer is, and if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that we don't work within the framework of like, the answer is.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, I don't think the answer is just create a group program. And this is the thing that I think so many of us have been doing over the last few years is like, oh, it looks like the membership option is the most sustainable thing to create financial stability, right? So I'm going to create a membership platform, or I'm going to create a group program, or it's going to look like this because this person is doing it and that person is doing it. What I hear you doing over and over and over and over again is saying, no. Don't just go create the group program. Think about what it is you're offering, the best structure for you to deliver it, what are the containers, and what are the containers that you're making so that people can actually access you and what you're doing given their financial circumstances.
Yes.
Do you want to use my business as an example? I mean, you helped me revolutionize my offer structure recently, basically.
Okay. Well, yeah. So first of all, we're going to do a whole episode
On
that,
offers next,
on
yes.
offers. But also, yeah, I want to hear from you about like, because it sounds like as I'm saying this about having things that are priced in different ways and
Yep.
then being able to send people into
different
pathways,
spaces. Yep.
that's resonating for you. It sounds
Yes.
like for you. So
And part of that process for me, and this goes to something that I think we definitely wanted to mention, is like, okay, so how do you price your work, especially in a world that's like, charge your worth. Make sure you're charging your worth, though. Are you charging your worth? You have helped me. I remember being like, I think I need to create a group program. What's the program? And you were like, oh, okay, maybe that's what you need to do. But how about all these other 20 million questions that we need to sit with before you just create the group program? Like, and so you helped me see that, yes, I have a group offer, the Content Club. It is, let's just say, more affordable. People are getting a lot of support in that space. If you need more one-on-one support and have more resources or want to get it done in less time, right? You can come work on with me in the Get It Done Day, which is a higher end price point. You helped me see how to do that.
yeah. Well, right, because you wanted to do, I think, if I'm correct, you wanted to do some kind of like mentorship group program. I started asking questions about like, what is it that when people come to you, what is the thing that you keep hearing people need
Yes.
or want?
Yes.
That led us to
The
the
Content
content
Club.
piece.
Yes.
Then it was just like, what's the easiest way for you to do that right now for the people that are walking through the door? That led us to Get It Done Day.
Yep.
Then we started looking at, okay, this is great, but what about the people who can't pay that right now? And it's
Exactly.
like, what's another way that you can hold space for people to get a similar outcome without you having to give an entire day of your time away?
Exactly.
So that it makes sense for you and it makes sense for them.
For them.
This is our fucking job.
You're absolutely right, and we're just not taught how to do it.
I know.
Like many of us.
I know.
And then many of us sit down and say, okay, great. So let's just say I have a one-on-one quote VIP offer or whatever the heck we're calling it. And then let's say I have a group program. How the heck do I charge for these things in a world that's telling me I have to charge my worth? And I feel like, who is it? is it Lena West that has helped you with some of this pricing stuff?
Lena West has been revolutionary. What was a revolutionary like mentor for me in terms of pricing. Yes. So Lena says all the time, and I would recommend that you just, since you're listening to podcasts, everyone, I recommend that you just go into Apple Podcasts and you just type in Lena West and you just listen to all the interviews that she's done, because they're amazing. Lena West was the person that taught me that the only rule of pricing is that you charge what you need to charge in order to feel whole and compensated. You think about everything that is going to go into you offering that thing, and then you ask yourself, what would you need to make in order for you to walk away from that experience feeling whole and compensated? When you do that, it accounts for things like being in the room with people who do not at all understand your lived experience and are going to put you through all kinds of shit that they don't even realize is harmful.
I don't know what you're talking about. This never happens to me.
It's also going to account for things like, oh, they want you to do a in-person speaking thing, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, that much money just to get on stage? Well, no, because you have to like leave your family and spend all day in the airport.
Right. You even said this to me recently. I was like, oh, look, I feel like we were having a conversation about this. I got hired to do a speaking gig. I gave them a rate for virtual. They came back and said, we want you longer and we want it for in person, but we'll only pay you this much more than your standard virtual rate. And I thought, no, like that means I'm going to have to drive at least an hour, round trip. Set up, deal with people in person, which by the way is not going to be good for my nervous system. I'm not used to, I need to get paid more money to like go out into the world and hold space in person for a significant audience too, like a huge audience I think it's going to be, like maybe hundreds of people. No, I would need to get paid thousands to do that. A 2-hour speaking gig. I now understand why in-person keynotes cost so much money.
Yeah.
It's not just about the hour speaking.
It's not. It's about everything that goes into you delivering it. And you want to think about everything that goes into you delivering it and doing a great fucking job.
Yes, knocking it out of the park and feeling good about it. And then add on, again, like you're saying, like, what does our work involve? As someone who's going and talking to mostly, let's just say, cisgender audiences about trans identity or whatever, or even talking to mostly cisgender audiences about marketing, because everybody knows at this point, if you've been listening to me ramble, that I can't talk about marketing without talking about power, which means I'm going to have an experience in the conversation. Right. We're all having an experience in the conversation. My point is, I want to get paid more for the work that I do in order to feel whole and compensated.
And by the way, this concept of the only rule of pricing is how much you need to charge to feel whole and compensated also leaves space for generosity.
Yes.
Because there's some people that I have no problem being like, oh, you need this support. You can come into this for free.
Yes.
I don't need any of your money to feel whole and compensated with you in that space.
Yes. I am totally fine with you paying less than my standard speaking rate or teaching rate because I understand my privilege in our relationship together, and I feel whole and compensated from a place of understanding my privilege to work with the rate that you need, right? Yeah.
Thank you, Lena West.
I love it. I love also just hearing, it's so funny because when I hear charge, I can't remember what you said, we'd have to go back, but you started the sentence just like I always hear it. The way for you to price your work, right, or something, is to charge what makes you feel whole and compensated, right? And the minute you say that, my nervous system softens because what I'm used to hearing is the way to price your work is to charge your worth. And that makes me so fucking confused and stressed and anxious. And then I'll go into imposter syndrome, blah, 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 blah. But whole and compensated, that reframe feels so much more like, if I really check in with myself, I can access that and learn over time. That that didn't feel good. But charging your worth, how am I ever gonna learn? That's just a bad framework.
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
Because our worth as human beings is not
Can't
monetary.
Be quantified by money. Anyways, capitalism.
So I think that like one of the other things that we want to talk about, and I think this brings us back to the conversation about sales calls or sales conversations.
Yeah.
Is like, okay, so what are some best practices for approaching this person's interested in working with you, and you're going to talk about working together, and like what should that conversation look like? I think that at this point, given everything that we've already discussed throughout this whole podcast and where people are at, it is just good business to reduce as much friction as possible by setting very clear expectations about what that process is going to look like. And in that is pricing transparency. So there was a time where we were taught, like, don't give the price up front, give it on the call or something like that. Or don't give it up front, right? Because you want to get people revved up about it. Yep. And then you want to kind of put them on their heels.
Yeah, it's also like you've already sold them and then you tell them the price, but they're already sold. So they're going to do it no matter what you say at that point. And they're going to think that because you've sold them so well, that whatever price you name is totally appropriate, even if it's $1 million.
Yep.
Manipulation.
Yeah, and I just think it's bad business at
this point. It is bad business. And also the other point in all of this was like, not just hide it until you get on the sales call, but bury it in the website too, I feel like has been like the practice. Like, make it so that you don't get to the price until you click after the sales page, like buy, and then you get the pricing. Or like I've seen it hidden in so many places, and I hear from people I work with all the time. I hate it when I get onto a sale, and they're not using this language, but I hate it when I get onto a sales page and I can't figure out how much the thing costs or when it meets, right? It's like buried somewhere and you can't find it. And people are losing interest because now it doesn't make any sense to not just say up front and transparently, this is how much the program costs, this is when it meets. Like,
yeah, I mean, when I hear this, I mean, I think that, right, there was a time when, like, I mean, this is a conversation about buyer sophistication, which I want to do much more explanation around. But essentially, we've reached a point where people are a lot better at assessing actual value of things and are at a point where they actually know really well, like they can sense bullshit. And you just writing a good sales page in the way that we used to be taught to do it, where it's all about the psychology of like eliciting some emotional state and then like creating urgency and scarcity and then, you know, hyping people up into a sale, like that worked well for a period of time. I don't think that it on its own, it's not working the way that it used to. And when I hear people overthinking about where they should put the price, or like, is it okay to put it here? Is this going to turn people off immediately? Where should I put it on the page? Where should it be? Maybe I should, and especially when I hear people thinking about burying it, I'm like, that is assuming that you are going to do such an incredible fucking job in your sales page that you're actually going to get someone to be clicking the fucking buy button without knowing how much they're about to pay.
Exactly.
Are you, first of all, get over yourself.
Yes. Also, do you understand what kind of time we're living in?
Exactly.
Hello?
Nobody is like just trying to throw their fucking money at you.
No, not to mention the fact that I think what's happening, as we've been talking about over the course of this podcast, is that people are actually investing less in training, back-end stuff, right? I also think we're investing less in the traditional ways we used to care for ourselves and our well-being.
So I think being really upfront about pricing actually is a way of now, given where we're at right now, and we need to consider the economy as well when we have this conversation. Being very transparent about your price, I think, is a way to allow people to go, okay, budget part figured out, now I can engage with what this is actually saying. Right? I need to check to make sure that it's even in my fucking range before any of this is relevant to me. if your pricing is not easy for people to find, I think what people are doing right now is they're skipping over all of the things that you spent so much time developing and being really intentional about because they are just digging for the price.
I completely agree.
They don't care about anything you're saying until they know if they can actually
Afford
it.
to come. So, not only are we saying it's good marketing to be like, here's how much this costs, here's how much this costs, here's how much this costs. But also, we're talking about values.
Yeah.
If we're talking about values and consent and transparency and ethics, seems to me like being clear about the price up front is a good idea.
Yep.
I've been putting at the top of sales pages at times, like pricing according to 3 tiers and the range, you know? Like just so people know the minute they land on the page, like that's what we're talking about.
And if you're not putting it at the top, I always recommend at least having a button at the top that immediately, right, if they're interested, they can click that button to enroll, and the very first thing that they see when they get to whatever that page is that button's going to bring them to should be the price.
Yes.
Very clearly.
And I think that this relates to, I'm like, what else? This relates to a big part of what I feel like your work is centering on lately, which is understanding what you need to do to reach a target number in your business.
Yeah, when we talk about pricing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that when I talk to people about their businesses, I think it's so funny that it took me 5 years to realize that, like, nobody ever thought about their business model, you know?
No.
It's like such low-hanging fruit. Like, that to me is just so obvious and easy to talk about.
We walked right over it. We just trampled right over it. Didn't even see it
now
lying
I'm like,
on the floor.
Okay, cool.
We should talk about that.
This is what you're charging. These are your offers. Have you ever run the numbers to figure out how many of those you would need to sell to make that money? Do you know what your expenses are? Do you know what you can pay yourself once you make X number of dollars?
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm just gonna wing it and trust that everything will work out, which is why I'm so mentally well all the time. You know what would be a good point in the conversation now? Let's talk about Summer Biz Camp.
Ooh.
Because this is what we're doing in camp.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So we're going to start by talking about what it is that you actually do and who you actually are. So we'll be talking about, like, positioning. We're also going to be talking about power and privilege.
Yes. I want to have that conversation at the same time.
Yeah.
I also think at this point in time, I'm like, I don't want to have any conversation about marketing and business that doesn't start with talking about power and privilege.
Yeah.
Anyways, yes, we're going to talk about power and privilege and positioning ourselves in our work. And then it's going to lead us into a conversation
about offers development,
business model, pricing. And the cool thing that I've been thinking about with BizCamp is that we're having 2 hours of, let's just say, like, learning time on these topics: business models, offer structure, right? Messaging, 2 hours. And then the next week, 2 hours to integrate and work on it together, which means ultimately it's almost like a mini immersion for each module, you know, of like learning and then integration with our support, which really means we could get a lot done. And even if you like non-closure, right? Like even if you just tap in and start on a project and you don't see it through, I think this program is going to set people, I mean, this is our goal, right? To set people up with what they need to create a more effective strategy that is sustainable for them, that will actually work towards paying them the money they need to be paying themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, yes, it's about setting up the foundations. By the way, we didn't even say, then we're going to link all of that to content and marketing strategy.
Yes, and how you message it and how you share it with the world.
Which I think so many people are jumped straight into marketing and are not actually thinking about, okay, well, you get those eyes on your work, you get that visibility, but like then
what do you do when you have the visibility? I can talk to you about getting visibility all day, but if you don't have the offer structure set up based on a business model that actually works for you, then what good is that visibility? Because then you're still, I know from personal experience, I'm still just going to be throwing darts at a wall and chasing after something and hoping it all works out rather than trusting that I have a plan that I know I can count on.
Yeah. I mean, I really hope that people walk away from Biz Camp with more of an understanding of just some foundational business like concepts and strategic considerations, so that the next time shit shifts, you know how to step back and continue to look at the situation and say, okay, so what are the different variables here? What are the different levers that I can pull? Like, what are the things that I can shift to meet this moment? Because guess what?
It's gonna shift again.
Offers, development, pricing, none of that changes.
No, it's not like
these are just these are just different puzzle pieces. It's on us to figure out how we make these things work. But it's like, I think that without the fundamental understanding, of course, we keep feeling like we need to outsource the strategy to other people to tell us what the framework is. And I'm like, I want you to be able to fucking make your own.
Yes. Come to Biz Camp, you know? So it's gonna be super fun. I mean, super fun in a nerdy way, but like,
I think
also,
it'll be hard too.
Oh yeah, I think it's gonna be hard. This stuff is not easy. None of this stuff is easy. None of it.
Yeah. But I think that like, we've really thought about what do we think people actually need
right now,
and what's the best way to set up each of these calls that we have together and set up the structure of the program to really allow people to like take this in and apply it in a way that you're not just walking away like more overwhelmed.
And on that note, you know, I just want to be transparent that we start on June 26th. We're going to meet on Wednesdays for 2 hours every Wednesday from 10 to noon Pacific, which is also 1 to 3 Eastern. Every Wednesday, June 26th, August 14th, we do have 3-tiered pricing to come into camp. And if you need to talk about, and each tier has a payment plan, and if you need to talk about it, we're here to talk about it. We want you to have access to this space if it's something that speaks to you.
It's 8 2-hour sessions, and it's starting, the lowest tier is $650 for the full program, and the highest is $1,850. When we were coming up with the pricing for this, I felt so good about it because I am so 100% solid on the fact that this is really kind of should probably be priced with the mid-tier at that supporter rate of $1,850, but we also just know the moment that we're in and we just like want folks in it.
Yeah, talk about like trying to figure out how to price something in a way that can meet people where they're at and also make us feel whole and compensated.
I know. I mean, we came up with an entire other program that was going to be like a 2-week immersive.
Yeah, like a online retreat for 2 full weeks. Let's do it.
With like half days every single day.
Yeah.
And then we priced it and we were like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Never going to work.
Okay,
nope. How can we actually make a program to meet people where they're at, not just in terms of time, but also finances, in which we also feel whole and compensated.
Yeah.
Come join us at Biz Camp this summer. You know you want to.
If you want to roast marshmallows like off camera, even on camera.
Sure.
While we're in the space together, maybe we should have like a mallow roasting ceremony.
We should start planning some like weird Zoom games, summer camp games.
I think
like icebreakers at the beginning of every session.
That's exactly what everyone's looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are looking for how they can just fuck around on Zoom more.
Cool. Glad we figured that out. That's good.
Maybe we should talk about... Do you want that in there?
Sure.
Cool. Nice. I like it. Personally, I think that it's a great addition.
I agree. Let's just leave it in.
Great.
Yeah, I still feel like you're basically making the same case multiple times.
Well, I'm just putting it in a
slightly different language. You're doing great at the marketing piece for Love Island, apparently.
Apparently not, because
Yeah, you're not selling me on it. But I'm sure our listeners are intrigued. Many of them.
I think that mostly
Actually,
the
I think
listeners
many
are
of our
just...
listeners have probably already watched it.
Yeah, probably many of our listeners have watched it, and probably many more are like, wow, I'm learning more and more about these people, and I don't really know how we feel about
Serious. Should I smoke more cannabis on the mic? Would that help?
I mean,
You tell us, everybody.
tell us, listeners, how do you feel about bong noises?
Bong rips in the middle of podcast
All right,
episodes.
you go for it. This will be our transition. Do it right into
great.
the mic.
I just keep outing myself in all the ways on our podcast. First, I out myself as a dance movie aficionado. And then I out myself as a chronic cannabis user. People are definitely going to want to hire me for my anti-oppression marketing work, you know?